Hello, beautiful people. I hope that wherever you are in the world, that you are doing well and that you are taking care of yourselves. I'm Chris Danker, and this is Let the Adventure Begin. Let the Adventure Begin with Chris Danker podcast. Hey, welcome to episode 141. If you are new to the show, thank you for giving me an opportunity to chat with you. I am a 57-year-old woman from the Midwest who likes to talk about all things adventure, and that can be with physical, intellectual, emotional, spiritual health. Those are the areas that I like to talk about the most. And just from the perspective of someone who has lived some life. So if you are new to the show, thanks for stopping by for the chat. And hopefully this will be one of many times that you will listen in. The podcast comes out every week on a Wednesday. And people have often asked me, why did I choose Wednesday? And for some reason, Wednesday's my favorite day of the week, which I know sounds really weird. I have been in education for 31 years as both a classroom teacher and currently as a school counselor. And I don't know what it is about Wednesdays. It's just that middle of the week and not a lot of activities are going on after school. And so it's a great time to just be able to go home after a full day of work. Yeah, it's just that middle of the week. I look at it as the top of the mountain, and then Thursday we come down to Friday and then head into the weekend. I always laugh though, because when I was an elementary school counselor, we for whatever reason, Wednesdays in elementary world, at least in the school, one of the schools I was in, we started calling it Wacky Wednesday, because for whatever reason, Wednesday was just kind of a wild day in our elementary world. And so maybe that's where my love of Wednesdays started. I don't know. But Wednesday, like I said, is my favorite day of the week. So that's why the podcast comes out on Wednesday. This week, I wanted to just talk about sitting with things. I was in a funk over the weekend, and it wasn't really anything in particular, but I was just kind of down, and I am strong in my faith. I'm always wanting to learn more about how to be a better person and to be able to better serve our world, to make my little corner of it a better place. And so my husband and I are members of a very inclusive LGBTQIA church in Omaha, Nebraska. And in fact, I will put the name of the church I'll just tell you the name of the church. It's St. Andrew's United Methodist Church. And it was a great find for us. We've been there for 2 years now, and it is truly inclusive. It's one of those spaces where everyone is welcome, no matter where you are on your faith journey. And they not only talk the talk, but they walk the walk. So that's my little PSA for the church that we belong to. But the sermon series during Lent this year has been basically each Sunday has been a slow move that talks about the last week before Easter. So, the first Sunday of the series was the Monday of the final week, and then Tuesday was the next week. And so this last weekend was all about Saturday before Easter Sunday. And I had never really thought about it before, but the Gospel of Mark, where our pastors have talked about and have used the Gospel of Mark for the sermon series, they said that in the Gospel of Mark, it's basically silent where Saturday is concerned. People have different takes on Jesus's crucifixion. We often call it the Good Friday. In Germany, it's called Sorrowful Friday, because it was a sad day when Jesus was crucified. And then we move into Saturday, and not much is said about Saturday. It was kind of like, just sitting with it in the Christian world of sitting with Jesus's death and not knowing what was going to come next on the third day when he was resurrected and we celebrate Easter. That Saturday, because it was that unknown and that sitting with that unknown. And so that really struck me when I was sitting with my funk, that sometimes we need to sit with our feelings. I feel like a lot of times emotionally, we push past, or we bury those feelings or bury those emotions, and we move on because we don't have time to deal with them. We're in such a busy rush world that it's like, well, I just have to go. I don't have time to deal with my emotions. And I will tell you, and this is probably not news to many of us, that if we don't deal with our emotions, it's going to come back and have more of an impact on other parts of our health. That if we aren't working through our emotional health, it's going to impact our physical health. It's going to impact our intellectual health and our spiritual health. It's going to have an effect upon our relationships with not only other people, but within ourselves. And so we can't keep escaping our emotions. Sometimes we just need to be able to sit with them. And like I said, it wasn't necessarily anything specific. It's just, sometimes we have like that dark cloud over our heads, and it just kind of happens once in a while. Maybe we don't necessarily have a specific trigger for it. And a lot of times people will say, well, there has to be an antecedent. There has to be a trigger. And while, yes, that might be true, there are often times where people will just say, well, I guess it was probably because of this, when you don't really know. And sometimes we just get in a funk, and that's okay. But don't rush through it. Sit with it. Kind of just to marinate on it. For me, I had, when I went to bed that night, when I was kind of having my funk, I had a good cry. I do a guided meditation before I go to sleep each night. And after that guided meditation, I just let the tears flow. I did. I probably for a good 5 minutes, I had just a good cry by myself. And it was great because then I was able to let it go. And it didn't, I didn't really connect it to, because it happened before our message at church on Sunday about the quiet day of Saturday between Good Friday and Easter Sunday, that silent Saturday. But as I reflected on it, I was like, oh, that's kind of how I was feeling, of that unknown as to why I was feeling that way, but I knew that I needed to be okay to sit with it, to sit with those feelings. And having that short cry was really good for me. Sometimes I'll journal. Sometimes journaling and getting those feelings out on when I'm writing can kind of help me tune into maybe why I was feeling that way. But in this case, it was okay not to know. It was okay not to have to try to figure it out. And I think because of that, and because I gave myself permission to sit with those feelings and just kind of let them flow out of me, then I was able to, the next day I was able to just kind of, I felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. And we all know that feeling when we're weighed down by something going on in our lives, and then all of a sudden it's gone. And for me, it was having that short little cry and getting it out of my system, getting a good night's sleep. And by the next day, I felt so much better. So I share this with you, not necessarily from a faith standpoint, although I was able, for me, it just kind of connected after hearing the message shortly after I had experienced this funky feeling. But I just wanted to share this with you in a way of giving yourself permission to sit with feelings instead of brushing them aside or moving on. And, sometimes we'll tell ourselves, I've just got to suck it up and just, be strong and move on. Sometimes, sure. But sometimes you just need to sit with it. So that's what I have for you this week. I hope you are having a fantastic week. And until next week, I hope you let your adventure begin. Peace.